The stars had always been silent. For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They sent radio signals into the darkness. They launched probes that carried golden records with sounds of Earth. They waited, hoped for an answer. The answer came on a cold morning in December. It was not what anyone had hoped for. Admiral Kong Taeho stood at the window of the United Earth Command Center in Seoul. The city stretched below him, 20 million people going about their lives. They did not know that 3,000 alien warships had appeared near Saturn just 6 hours ago. They did not know that humanity had received its first message from the stars. And it was a death threat. The door behind him opened. Dr. Yoon Hannah walked in. Her white lab coat wrinkled from days without sleep. She was the smartest person Taeho had ever met, and right now she looked terrified. "The council is ready," she said quietly. Taeho nodded but did not move from the window. "How many ships did you count?" 3,042. Each one is at least 5 kilometers long. Their smallest ship is bigger than anything we have ever built. And their weapons? Hannah paused. Our sensors cannot fully understand their technology. But based on the energy readings, a single ship could destroy a continent in minutes. Taeho closed his eyes. He was 63 years old. He had served in 3 wars. He had lost friends, soldiers, and his own brother to combat. But nothing in his life had prepared him for this moment. "Let us go meet the council," he said. The council chamber was filled with the leaders of every nation on Earth. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists sat around a massive round table. Holographic screens showed images of the alien fleet. The ships were black and covered with strange symbols that glowed red. They looked like weapons. They looked like death. Lieutenant Choi Yoon stood at the main display. She was young, only 28, but she was the best communications officer in the fleet. Her hands were steady as she pulled up the alien message. "This transmission was received at 0400 hours, she said. "It was sent in every human language simultaneously. They have been watching us for a very long time." She pressed a button, and the message played. The voice was cold and mechanical. Translated by whatever technology the aliens possessed. Species designation, human, planet designation, Earth. You have been observed for 200 of your years. Your development has been noted. Your expansion into your solar system has been tolerated. This tolerance is ended. The Drath Empire claims this region of space. All species within claimed territory must submit to Drath authority. You will surrender your military forces. You will provide tribute in the form of resources and labor. You will accept Drath governors on your world. Failure to comply will result in extinction. You have 30 of your days to respond. This is not a negotiation. This is your only notice. The message ended. The chamber was silent. A man from the European delegation spoke first. His voice shook. "What do we know about these Drath?" Captain Park Sung stepped forward. He was Taeho's most trusted tactical officer. A man who had spent his entire career preparing for threats that most people thought were science fiction. "We've been intercepting their communications since they arrived," Park said. The Drath Empire controls 17 star systems. They have conquered over 40 species in the past 1,000 years. Every species that resisted was destroyed completely. Every species that surrendered became slaves. "Then we surrender," another delegate said quickly. "We cannot fight them. You said yourself that one ship could destroy a continent. They have 3,000 ships." Taeho finally spoke. His voice was calm and steady. "And then what? We become slaves? We mine their resources until our planet is dead. We watch our children grow up in chains. At least our children would be alive. Would they?" Taeho turned to face the table. "I have read the reports from the species that surrendered. The Drath do not see other beings as people. They see them as tools. They work them until they break, and then they dispose of them. The average lifespan of a slave species is 3 generations before they go extinct anyway." The chamber erupted in arguments. Voices shouted over each other. Fear filled the room like smoke. Hannah stood up. She did not shout. She simply waited until the noise died down. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. "There is another option." Everyone turned to look at her. 20 years ago, during the border wars on Mars, my team developed something. A weapon. It was meant to end the war quickly and save lives. But when we tested it, we realized what we had created was too powerful, too dangerous. We sealed the project and buried it in the deepest classified archives. We called it Project Stillness. What does it do? Someone asked. Hannah looked at Tejo. He nodded. It removes matter from existence, she said simply. Not destroys. Not burns or breaks apart. It folds space around the target and removes it from our universe entirely. There is no explosion, no radiation, no debris. The target simply stops existing. The room was completely silent. How large a target? Park asked. In theory, there is no limit. We could remove a single ship or an entire fleet. The only restriction is the power required and the targeting accuracy. And you have this weapon ready. Hannah nodded slowly. It has been ready for 20 years. We just hoped we would never need to use it. Tejo walked to the center of the room. He looked at each face around the table. He saw fear. He saw doubt. But he also saw something else. He saw the same stubborn refusal to die that had carried humanity through ice ages and plagues and wars. We will send them one warning, he said. We will tell them to leave our space. We will give them 7 days to comply. And if they refuse, we will show them why humanity has survived everything the universe has thrown at us for 10,000 years. And if the weapon fails? Someone asked. Tejo smiled grimly. Then we die fighting. But we do not die on our knees. He turned to Choi Yoon. Lieutenant, prepare a transmission to the Drath fleet. Make sure they understand every word. Yoon nodded, her fear replaced by determination. Yes, Admiral. Hannah moved to stand beside Tejo. Are you sure about this? She whispered. He looked out at the holographic image of the alien fleet. Those 3,000 ships that thought they could simply take everything humanity had built. He admitted. But I am sure about one thing. We did not crawl out of the mud, survive every disaster this planet threw at us, and reach for the stars just to become someone else's property. If the universe wants to kill humanity, it will have to work for it. The preparations began within the hour. The warning would be sent at dawn. And somewhere beyond Saturn, 3,000 ships waited, completely unaware that they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. High Commander Velos had conquered 11 worlds. He had personally overseen the extinction of 3 species who had been foolish enough to resist the Drath Empire. His name was spoken with fear across 17 star systems. When he walked through the corridors of his flagship, the inevitable end, every soldier pressed themselves against the walls and lowered their eyes. He was 8 feet tall, with 4 powerful arms covered in natural armor that could stop a blade. His eyes were black and empty, evolved over millions of years to show no emotion that prey might read. He was the perfect predator, and he had never known defeat. This morning, he was bored. The human conquest was supposed to be simple. A primitive species on a single planet, barely capable of reaching their own moon a century ago. They had no shields, no faster-than-light travel, no weapons that could scratch Drath armor. This was not a war. This was a harvest. Vela sat in his command chair watching the blue planet on the view screen. It was pretty, he admitted. Blue and green and white. It would make a fine mining colony once the humans were put to work. High Commander, his communications officer called out, "We are receiving a transmission from the human planet." Velos waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "Their surrender already? That was faster than expected." "Put it through." The screen flickered, and a human face appeared. It was an older male with gray hair and hard eyes. He wore a simple military uniform with no decorations. When he spoke, his voice was calm and steady. "This is Admiral Kung Tejo of Earth's United Defense Fleet. You have entered sovereign, human space without authorization. You will withdraw your fleet beyond the Neptune marker within 7 standard days. There will be no second warning." There will be no negotiation. Failure to comply will result in the complete annihilation of your forces. Choose wisely. The message ended. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then Warlord Mycon Velus's second-in-command began to laugh. It was a harsh sound, like metal scraping against stone. Other officers joined in, their laughter filling the command center. Annihilation. Mycon roared. These insects threaten us with annihilation. With what? Their tiny metal ships. Their chemical rockets? Velos allowed himself a small smile. It seems the humans have more courage than intelligence, a common trait in species that do not last long. Should we respond, High Commander? The communications officer asked. No. Let them wait and wonder. Let them spend their final days in fear. Velos leaned back in his chair. We will begin the assault in 30 days as planned. There is no need to rush. I want them to understand exactly how helpless they are. But not everyone on the bridge was laughing. Advisor Sella stood in the shadows near the back of the command center. He was smaller than most Drath, his body built for thinking rather than fighting. His role was to study enemy species, to understand their psychology, to find weaknesses that could be exploited. He had spent the past 6 months studying humanity. What he had found disturbed him deeply. Hi, Commander, Sella said, stepping forward. May I speak? Velos looked at him with mild interest. You may. I have concerns about this species. They are not like the others we have conquered. Mycon snorted. They are exactly like the others. Weak, primitive, afraid. No, Sella said firmly. They are afraid, but they do not surrender to fear. I have studied their history. They nearly destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons, yet they survived. They have experienced 5 mass extinction events on their planet, yet they survived. They fight each other constantly, yet when faced with an outside threat, they unite with a speed that is remarkable. So they are stubborn, Velos said. Stubborn prey is still prey. There is more. Celis pulled up data on his portable display. Their technological advancement in the past 200 years is unprecedented. When we first observed them, they could not even fly. Now they have colonies on 3 worlds and outposts throughout their solar system. They learn and adapt faster than any species in our records. And yet they still have nothing that can threaten us, Mycon said. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are slow. We could destroy their entire fleet in minutes. That is what concerns me, Celis replied. They know this. Their admiral knows exactly how powerful we are, yet he did not surrender. He did not beg for mercy. He issued a threat. Either he is insane, or he has something we do not know about. Velos considered this for a moment. Then he shook his head. You give them too much credit, advisor. They are bluffing. It is a common tactic among species facing extinction. They hope that if they appear strong, we might hesitate. We will not. High Commander, I strongly recommend that we send scout ships to investigate their defenses before we attack. If there is even a small chance that they have developed something unexpected enough, Velas's voice was cold. I have conquered 11 worlds. I have crushed species far more advanced than these humans. I will not delay our victory because of your fears. Celis lowered his head. As you command, High Commander. But as he returned to his position in the shadows, Celis could not shake the feeling that something was very wrong. He had watched the human admiral's face during the transmission. He had seen something in those eyes that he had never seen in any other species they had conquered. It was not fear. It was not desperation. It was certainty. The human believed every word he had said. He genuinely believed that he could destroy the Drath fleet, and that terrified Celis more than anything else. Over the next 7 days, Celis continued his research. He dug through every piece of information the Drath had gathered about humanity. He studied their wars, their science, their culture, and the more he learned, the more worried he became. These were a people who had split the atom and created weapons that could destroy cities. They had done this in the middle of a global war, working in secret, racing against time. They had achieved in 4 years what should have taken decades. What else had they created in secret? On the sixth day, Celis requested a private meeting with Velos. He brought all of his research. Every piece of evidence he had gathered. "Hi, Commander, please listen to me. I have found references in human communications to something called Project Stillness. I do not know what it is, but it has the highest level of secrecy in their military. They have been working on it for 20 years. Velos did not even look at the data. A secret project. Every species has secret projects. None of them have ever mattered. But the name Stillness. Why would they call a weapon that? Unless it creates some kind of advisor. Celis, Flo stood, towering over the smaller Drath. Your job is to advise. You have advised. I have listened. Now I am telling you that your concerns are noted and dismissed. The attack will proceed as planned. If you speak of this again, I will consider it insubordination." Celis bowed his head. "I understand, High Commander." He left the command center and returned to his small ship, positioned far from the main fleet as protocol required for observers. From there, he watched the human planet and waited. On the seventh day, final transmission came from Earth. It was text only, no video. "Your time has ended. Remember, we warned you." Khan laughed when he read it. Velos deleted it without a second thought. The fleet began powering up their engines, preparing for the final approach, and Celis, alone on his observation ship, whispered a prayer to gods he had stopped believing in long ago. He had seen the certainty in the human admiral's eyes. Whatever was about to happen, it would not be what the Dreth expected. He was right. The bunker was buried 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean. It had been built in secret over 15 years, disguised as a deep-sea research station. Only 47 people in the entire world knew what it really contained. Dr. Yoon Hannah had not left the bunker in 6 days. She had not slept more than 2 hours at a time. Her eyes were red from staring at screens, and her hands trembled slightly from too much coffee and too little rest. But she could not stop. Not now. Not when everything depended on the next 24 hours. Project Stillness filled the central chamber of the bunker. It did not look like a weapon. There were no missiles, no cannons, no obvious signs of destruction. Instead, there was a ring of massive generators surrounding a single platform. Cables as thick as tree trunks connected everything to a power source that drew energy directly from the Earth's core. "Run the targeting simulation again," Hannah said to her team. "Doctor, we have run it 43 times. The results are identical." "Then run it 44 times. If there is even a 1% chance of error, 2 million Draths will survive. I want 0%. The technician nodded and started the simulation again. Hannah walked to the main control panel and stared at the numbers. The math was beautiful in its horror. Quantum displacement worked by folding space around a target, creating a pocket of non-existence. Anything inside the fold simply stopped being part of this universe. There was no pain, no destruction, no trace left behind. One moment you existed, the next you did not. She had invented this technology to end wars quickly and painlessly. Instead, she had created the most terrifying weapon in human history. A communication screen lit up. Admiral Kung Taeho's face appeared. "Doctor, what is your status?" "The weapon is ready. Targeting matrix is locked on the Drath fleet. Power levels are stable. We can fire at any time." Taeho nodded slowly. "In the range?" "Unlimited, theoretically. The fold propagates through quantum space, not normal space. Distance does not matter. Side effects." Hannah hesitated. "Unknown. We tested the weapon on small objects during the border wars, asteroids, debris, unmanned ships, but we have never used it on anything living. We do not know if there are consequences we cannot predict." "But you believe it will work?" She looked at the weapon, at the generators humming with enough power to erase a fleet from existence. "I believe it will work. I just hope we never have to find out what else it can do." Far above the ocean aboard the flagship Silent Dawn, Captain Park Sung was having a different kind of conversation. Lieutenant Choi Yoon sat beside him on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. They had known each other for 10 years, served together through the Mars uprising and the asteroid mining disputes. They had never talked about personal things before. But with potential extinction approaching, The usual rules seemed pointless. "Do you think we will survive?" Yoon asked quietly. Park considered the question. "The Admiral believes we will. Dr. Yoon believes the weapon will work. That is enough for me. But what if it does not? What if the Drath destroy us anyway? Then we will have tried. That is all anyone can do." Yoon was silent for a moment. "I grew up in Busan. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the wars our ancestors fought. The Japanese occupation, the division of our country, all the suffering our people endured. She always said that Koreans survived because we refused to give up. No matter how bad things get, we keep fighting." Park smiled slightly. "And now, we fight for all of humanity. It seems strange, does it not? 100 years ago, the nations of Earth were ready to destroy each other. Now we stand together against a common enemy. Perhaps that is what we needed. Something bigger than ourselves to remind us that we are all the same species, all the same family." The door opened, and Admiral Kung Tae-ho walked in. He looked tired but determined. He had been awake for 36 hours, coordinating humanity's response across every government and military organization on Earth. "The Drath have not responded to our warning," he said. "Their fleet is still in position near Saturn. They are treating this as entertainment." "Entertainment?" Yoon looked confused. "They're broadcasting to their home systems. They call this the human harvest. They are taking bets on how long our species will last." Park's jaw tightened. "Then let us show them how wrong they are." Aho nodded. "I want the entire fleet in position around Earth within the hour. Not because we will fight, we cannot win a conventional battle, but because I want every human who looks up at the sky to see our ships defending them. I want them to know that we are not hiding. We are not running. We are facing this together in Project Stillness." Park asked. "Dr. Yoon will fire the weapon from the bunker when I give the order. The timing must be exact. We need the Drath fleet to be in motion, committed to their attack. If they see something strange and retreat, we lose our advantage." "They will not retreat," Yoon said. "They are too arrogant. They do not believe we can hurt them. I am counting on that arrogance." Tae-ho walked to the window and looked out at Earth, blue and beautiful in the darkness. Every species they have conquered was afraid. Every species either surrendered or fought with conventional weapons and lost. They have never faced anything like what we are about to do. They have no concept of what we are capable of because they have never imagined anyone could be this dangerous. "And after?" Park asked. "If we survive, if we destroy their fleet, what then?" Tae-ho was quiet for a long moment. "Then the galaxy will know what humanity truly is. They will fear us. Some will hate us. But none of them will ever make the mistake of thinking we are weak again." The 7th day arrived slowly, each hour stretching like a lifetime. Across Earth, people gathered in parks and homes and churches, watching the sky, waiting for whatever would come. Some prayed, some cried, some simply held their loved ones close in the bunker beneath the Pacific. Dr. Yoon Hannah made final adjustments to the targeting matrix. Her hands were steady now, the trembling gone. Fear had been replaced by focus. On the silent dawn, Lieutenant Choi Yoon sat at her communications station, monitoring Drath transmissions. They were preparing to move. Their engines were warming up. The attack was about to begin. Admiral Kang Tae-ho stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display. 3,000 red dots representing Drath ships. A few dozen blue dots representing the Earth fleet. The numbers were absurd, impossible, hopeless. But numbers were not everything. At exactly midnight Earth Standard Time, he opened a channel to Dr. Yoon Hannah. "Are you ready?" Her voice came back clear and calm. "Ready, Admiral? When their fleet begins moving toward Earth, you fire. Not before. I want them committed. I want them to have no chance to escape." "Understood." Tae-ho switched channels. "Lieutenant Choi, send the final message to the Drath fleet." Yoon's fingers moved across her console. The transmission was brief. "Your time has ended. Remember, we warned you." She sent it and looked at the Admiral. Message away. Tae-ho watched the tactical display. For several minutes, Nothing happened. The Drath fleet remained stationary. Then, slowly, the red dots began to move. The Drath armada was advancing toward Earth. "They're coming," Park reported. All 3,000 ships. Full attack formation. Teho opened the channel to Dr. Yoon one final time. "Hannah, fire when ready." 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean. Dr. Yoon Hannah took a deep breath, looked at the weapon she had created, and pressed the button that would change the course of galactic history. "Forgive us," she whispered to no one in particular. "We did not want this." The generators screamed to life. Space itself began to fold, and 3,000 Drath warships sailed toward a fate they could not possibly imagine. Warlord Mycon stood on the observation deck of the inevitable end, watching the blue planet grow larger on the screen. His blood sang with anticipation. This was what he lived for the moment before conquest, when Prey finally understood that hope was meaningless. "All ships report ready for attack," his tactical officer announced. "Weapons charged, shields at full power. The human fleet is in defensive position around their planet." Mycon laughed. "Their entire fleet? All 47 ships? Pathetic? Order the first wave to begin bombardment of their outer colonies. Let them watch their people die before we reach their homeworld." "Yes, Warlord." High Commander Velos entered the observation deck, his forearms clasped behind his back. He looked pleased, almost relaxed. This was routine for him. Another species about to join the Empire as slaves? Another world about to be stripped of resources. Nothing special. "The humans have stopped transmitting," Velos observed. "No more threats. No more warnings. They finally understand what is about to happen." "They should have surrendered when they had the chance," Mycon replied. "Now they will suffer before they serve." On a small observation ship positioned far behind the main fleet, Advisor Celis watched the tactical display with growing dread. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. The humans were not running. Their ships had not scattered or attempted to flee. They simply sat there, orbiting their planet, waiting. It made no sense. Any rational species would be trying to escape, to save at least some of their population. Instead, they seemed almost calm, and there was something else. His sensors were picking up strange readings from the human planet. Energy signatures, unlike anything in the Drath database. Something was building, gathering power somewhere on Earth. He opened a communication channel to the flagship. "Hi, Commander. I am detecting unusual energy readings from the human planet. I recommend we halt the advance until we can analyze." Denied Velos responded without even looking at the message. "Continue the attack." Celes closed his eyes. There was nothing more he could do. He had tried to warn them. They had not listened. Now, all he could do was watch and record whatever happened next. The Drath fleet continued its approach. 3,000 ships moving in perfect formation, their weapons glowing with stored energy, their crews eager for conquest. They crossed the orbit of Jupiter, then Mars. The human fleet remained stationary, not even attempting to engage. "Cowards," Mycon sneered. "They know they cannot win, so they do not even try." "They are protecting their planet," Velos said. "Admirable in a way. Futile, but admirable." The fleet was now approaching the orbit of Earth's moon. Another few minutes and they would be in optimal firing range. The human homeworld would burn, and a new slave species would be born. And then, in a single moment, everything changed. On the silent dawn, Admiral Kong Teho watched the tactical display. The Drath fleet was fully committed now, too close to Earth to retreat. This was the moment. "Dr. Yoon," he said into his communicator. "Fire." 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, Hannah pressed the final command. The generators reached full power. Space folded in ways that human mathematics could barely describe. And 4.7 seconds later, the Drath armada ceased to exist. On the observation ship, Celes saw it happen. He saw everything, and he understood nothing. There was no explosion, no flash of light, no sound that could not exist in space anyway. One moment, 3,000 ships filled his view screen, massive warships. each one 5 kilometers long, each one carrying thousands of soldiers. Enough firepower to crack planets? The next moment, there was nothing. His sensors screamed with impossible readings. The ships had not been destroyed. There was no debris, no radiation, no energy signature of any weapons fire. The ships had simply vanished, removed, erased from existence, as if they had never been there at all. Celis stared at his screen, unable to process what he was seeing. The stars looked the same. The human planets still hung in the void, blue and peaceful. The human fleet still orbited their world, but where the greatest armada in Drath history had been, there was only empty space. "No," he whispered. "This is not possible. This cannot be possible." He ran every scan his ship possessed. He checked the recordings again and again. The result was always the same. 3,000 ships. 2 million soldiers. High Commander Velos, Warlord, Makan, all of them gone in less than 5 seconds, and the humans had not even moved their ships. They had not fired a single conventional weapon. They had just sat there and watched their enemy disappear. For the first time in his life, Advisor Celis understood true fear. Not the fear of death that was natural, expected. This was something deeper. This was the fear of a predator realizing it. Had walked into the territory of something far more dangerous than itself. He thought about the human warning. Failure to comply will result in the complete annihilation of your forces. He had thought it was a bluff. Everyone had thought it was a bluff. It was not a bluff. Celis began recording. His hands shook so badly that he could barely operate the controls, but he forced himself to continue. The galaxy needed to know what had happened here. The Drath Empire needed to know what humanity was capable of. He recorded the empty space where the fleet had been. He recorded the sensor logs showing the moment of disappearance. He recorded his own voice, trembling and broken, explaining what he had witnessed, and then he set course for home. On the silent dawn, the bridge was silent. Every officer stared at the tactical display, unable to speak. Where 3,000 red dots had been, there was nothing. The attack was over before it had truly begun. Lieutenant Choi Yoon was the first to find her voice. "Admiral, they are gone. All of them. Our sensors show no trace of the Drath fleet, okay?" Admiral Kong Tae-ho did not respond immediately. He stood at the window, looking out at the stars. He had expected to feel relief, joy, perhaps. Instead, he felt something closer to grief. 2 million beings had just ceased to exist because their leaders had been too arrogant to listen to a simple warning. 2 million soldiers who had families, who had lives, who had simply been following orders. Gone in less than 5 seconds. This was what humanity had become. This was what they were capable of, Admiral. Captain Park Sung approached him carefully. "Are you all right?" "No," Tae-ho admitted. "I am not sure I will ever be all right again. But we survived. That is what matters." He turned back to the bridge, his expression hardening into the mask of command. "There was still work to do, Lieutenant Choi. Prepare a message for broadcast to the galaxy. Every species, every empire, everyone with the ability to receive transmissions. They need to know what happened here today." "Yes, Admiral." "What should the message say?" Tae-ho thought for a moment. The words needed to be perfect. They needed to establish humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. They needed to make clear that Earth was not to be threatened, not to be conquered, not to be ignored. "Tell them the truth," he said finally. "Tell them exactly what we did and why we did it. And tell them that this is the only warning they will ever receive." Yoon began typing, and Admiral Kong Tae-ho prepared to introduce humanity to the galaxy in a way that no one would ever forget. In the deep bunker beneath the Pacific, Dr. Yoon Hannah sat alone, staring at the powered-down weapon. The generators were silent now, the platform empty. But she could still feel the echo of what had happened, as if the universe itself was still ringing from the violence she had done to it. 2 million, she whispered. "I killed 2 million beings in less than 5 seconds." No one could tell her that it was justified, that it was necessary, that she had saved her species. All of those things were true. and none of them made her feel any better. She had created this weapon to end wars quickly, to save lives by making conflicts so terrible that no one would dare start one now. She understood what that really meant. She had become the monster that the galaxy would fear. Humanity had become the monster that the galaxy would fear, and there was no going back. The door opened, and a message arrived from Admiral Kang. It was a single line of text. "Thank you. Now come home." Anna read it, deleted it, and began shutting down the facility. The weapon would remain here, buried beneath the ocean, waiting for the next time someone threatened humanity's existence. She hoped that day would never come, but if it did, she would be ready. The message reached every corner of the galaxy within hours. Every species capable of receiving transmissions heard the same words, saw the same face, understood the same truth. Admiral Kang Tae-ho appeared on billions of screens across thousands of worlds. His face was calm, his voice steady. He looked like someone who had just changed the course of history, because he had. This message is for every civilization, every empire, every species that watches the stars. Today, the Drath Armada ceased to exist. 3,000 warships, 2 million soldiers, gone in 4.7 seconds. This was not a battle. This was a demonstration. In the great halls of ancient empires, rulers watched with growing fear. In the hidden bunkers of military commanders, officers rewound the message again and again, trying to understand what they were seeing. In the homes of ordinary beings across the galaxy, families gathered around screens and listened to words that would reshape everything they knew. "We did not want this," Tae-ho continued. "We sent one warning. It was ignored. The Drath Empire demanded our surrender. They threatened our extinction. They called our destruction entertainment and invited the galaxy to watch. We gave them every opportunity to withdraw peacefully. They laughed at us." He paused, letting the words sink in. Let this serve as humanity's first and final message to the galaxy. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. We wish only to exist in peace, to explore, to grow, to learn alongside our galactic neighbors. We offer friendship to any species willing to treat us with respect. We offer trade, cooperation, and mutual prosperity. His eyes hardened, but understand this clearly. We are not prey. We have never been prey. We are Earth. We carry 10,000 years of struggle in our bones. We remember every extinction we survived, every ice age, every plague, every war we fought against ourselves and won. We did not crawl out of the mud, reach for the stars, and travel across the void just to become someone else's property. Any species that threatens our existence will face the same fate as the Drath. There will be no warnings after this one. There will be no mercy. There will only be stillness. The choice, as always, is yours. The message ended. Across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. The Vorn Collective, an alliance of 12 species, immediately voted to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. The Singing Empire of the Melody, ancient beings who communicated through music, composed a new symphony titled The Silence of Arrogance and transmitted it to Earth as a gift. The merchant clans of the Outer Rim sent trade offers within hours, but not everyone reacted with peace. On the fortress world of Krath Prime, the remaining leaders of the Drath Empire gathered in their war council. They had lost their greatest fleet, their most powerful commander, 2 million of their finest soldiers. Their empire had been humiliated before the entire galaxy. "We must strike back," one general demanded. "We must show the galaxy that the Drath do not surrender to anyone." "Strike back with what?" another replied. "That was our largest armada. We have nothing left that could challenge them. And we build more ships. We gather allies. And then what?" Visor Celis walked into the chamber. He was the only survivor of the fleet, the only one who had seen what happened with his own eyes. "We send another fleet and watch it disappear? Send another and another, until there are no Drath left?" The generals turned to him with anger in their eyes. "You are a coward, Celis. You ran while our warriors died. I followed protocol. I was positioned far from the main fleet as all observers are required to be. Because of that, I am alive to tell you what happened. He walked to the central display and activated the recording he had made. The council watched in silence as 3,000 ships vanished in an instant. No explosion, no flash, just absence where presence had been moments before. This is what we face, Celis said when the recording ended. A weapon that ignores shields, ignores armor, ignores distance. A weapon that does not destroy, it erases. It removes matter from existence, as if it had never been. We have nothing that can counter this. No one in the galaxy has anything that can counter this. Then what do you suggest? The oldest council member asked. That we bow to these humans? That we accept our defeat? Celes met his eyes without flinching. I suggest we survive. I suggest we focus on rebuilding our empire, strengthening our remaining territories, and never, ever giving the humans a reason to use that weapon again. Because if we attack them and fail, we will fail their will. Be nothing left of the Drath except stories of how foolish we were. The council argued for hours. In the end, they voted to accept Celis's recommendation. The Drath Empire would not seek revenge against Earth. They would focus on internal matters and hope that humanity would forget about them. They would not forget. But they would be patient. The Drath had learned their lesson. On Earth, the celebrations lasted for days. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. They had proven that they were not the weak, primitive species that the galaxy had assumed. They were something far more dangerous, a species that had learned to survive anything the universe could throw at them, but not everyone celebrated. Dr. Yoon. Hannah returned to her home and soul for the first time in months. Her apartment was exactly as she had left it, not organized, empty. She sat by the window and watched the city lights below, thinking about what she had done. 2 million lives. Gone in less than 5 seconds. Yes, they had been enemies. Yes. They had threatened humanity with extinction. But they had also been living beings with thoughts and feelings and dreams of their own. And she had erased them all without giving them a chance to surrender, to reconsider, to choose differently. She told herself it was necessary. She told herself there had been no other choice. And maybe that was true. But it did not make the weight on her soul any lighter. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Admiral Kong Taeho standing in the hallway, looking older and more tired than she had ever seen him. "May I come in?" he asked. She stepped aside, and he entered. For a long moment, they simply stood there, two people who had changed history, and were not sure how to feel about it. "The council wants to give you a medal," Taeho said finally. "They want to call you a hero, the savior of humanity." "I do not want a medal." I told them that. I told them you would refuse. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. "Do you know what I keep thinking about? The message they sent us? The Drath? They called it the human harvest. They were going to exterminate our species, and they treated it like entertainment. They underestimated us. Ain't everyone underestimates us. That is what I realized. The galaxy looked at humanity and saw a young species barely capable of reaching our own moon. They saw our wars, our divisions, our failures. They thought we were weak because we fight among ourselves." Hannah joined him at the window. "And what do you think they see now?" "I think they see the truth. We fight among ourselves because that is how we grow. Every war, every conflict, every struggle makes us stronger. We adapt, we evolve, we survive. When something from outside threatens all of us, we stop fighting each other and unite against the common enemy." He turned to face her. "The galaxy is afraid of us now. Good, they should be. But fear is not enough. We need to show them that we are more than just a threat. We need to show them that humanity can be a force for good in the galaxy. How do we do that? By being better than our enemies. By offering friendship instead of conquest. By building alliances instead of empires. The Drath tried to rule through fear. We will lead through example." Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled sadly. "You make it sound so simple. It will not be simple. It will take generations. But we have time now. Thanks to you, humanity has a future. What we do with that future is up to us." Lieutenant Choi Yoon's voice came through Taeho's communicator. Admiral, we are receiving diplomatic requests from 37 species. They want to establish formal relations with Earth. Tejo looked at Hannah. It seems the galaxy is ready to talk. Then you should not keep them waiting. He nodded and walked toward the door. But before he left, he turned back one final time. Hannah, what we did was terrible, I know that. But it was also necessary. We saved our species. We saved billions of human lives. Whatever guilt we carry it together. We carry it because we chose to survive. That is nothing to be ashamed of. She did not respond, but something in her expression softened slightly. Tejo left, and Hannah returned to her window. Below, the city of Seoul, spread out in a tapestry of lights and life. 20 million people who would never know how close they had come to extinction. 20 million people who had a future because of what she had done. Maybe that was enough. Maybe saving lives. Maybe saving lives of other lives was the only choice that mattered in the end. The stars were no longer silent. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the loudest possible way. What came next would be difficult, uncertain, and dangerous. But for the first time in history, humanity faced the future not as prey, not as victims, but as equals. The galaxy had learned a simple truth that day. Humanity preferred peace. They wanted friendship and cooperation and mutual prosperity. But if pushed, if threatened, if given no other choice, they would become something the universe had never seen before. They would become the silence that ended empires.